Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tablelands Regional Council planning meeting for the 13th of September. Could I remind everyone to turn their devices off or onto silent, please? Now, do we have any apologies? I know we have an apology from Councillor Hodge, who can't be here today. Are there any others? No? Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we meet on today and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. Item 5, councillors. Do we have any declarations, conflicts of interest by councillors or senior officers? No, thank you. So that brings us straight to item 8.1, Tablelands Regional Council variation request to vary the effect of the planning scheme and RAL 1 into 2 lots, Lot 2 NR 7968-42 Maple Street, Atherton, MCU 22/0026. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Cardew is moving, and a seconder. Councillor Hayden seconding. Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, thank you. Look, this application was originally put up because there was quite some strong interest in a private health firm wanting to set up a day surgery in Atherton. Unfortunately, as we all know, that didn't proceed for whatever reason, but I think for looking to the future, I think that if we can secure a private health company to put up a day surgery or a small hospital for day surgery here in Atherton, it's going to be a huge benefit for the whole of TRC. So, and this is going to get us shovel ready for such a move, I believe. So I'm happy to support it. My only concern, and I've talked to the planners about this, was the 4,000 square metres site area. I was just a little bit concerned whether that was going to be big enough for any potential health provider in the future, whether that's enough room for them. But anyway, I've been satisfied by the planners that it's not hard to change if it's not, and happy to support the officer's recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Cardew. Councillor Hayden.
Yeah, so I'm supportive of this. I think being ready for whatever comes our way is a good idea, and I think it's a great area for it to be put in, actually.
Very good. Councillors. Councillor Clifton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think the move is an excellent one, but from my perspective, it's premature. I'd like, if I may, to ask a couple of questions of the planners.
Yep.
Thank you. And the CEO. Sure. Do we have any current interest in the site from medical businesses? I know we had, as Councillor Cardew said, we had interest a couple of years ago. Do we have any current discussions in place?
Not at the moment, Councillor Clifton. No active discussions. Fair to say, though, that the party that we were speaking to ruled out an interest, just the deferral of the timing of any development on this part of the state, as opposed to having no interest at all.
Thank you. Well, then the next question: have we had this current discussions with the Queensland government about its plans, about what it's going to do with its officers, including the police station, other officers? We have in that community precinct, integrated community precinct, we have a state government or a government site next door to the proposed medical site. Do we have any idea have there been any discussions about any plans that the Queensland Government might have about, and I'm talking about in the long term, I'm not talking about this year, next year, we've got to look at it from a longer term perspective.
Any discussions that I've had, councillor, have been limited to QFES operations. There haven't been any proactive discussions beyond, yes, they have an interest in better facilities, but that's pretty much where it's gone.
And the final question, because maybe I should know this, but we've got the brand new Atherton Hospital, fantastic. We've got the old hospital sitting next door. Do we have any insight as to what it might be repurposed for? Because there are a number of examples around the place where government and private industry have, at the medical level, have cooperated together, and I'm wondering whether there remains a possibility there for the Queensland Government, if they have had, and we do have any insight as to whether they've had commenced discussions or intend or could have discussions with private medical groups to do this very facility we're talking about now. Is there any insight there?
Look, my recollection is, and we can confirm this at 11 o'clock this morning when the chairman of the health district will be here, so we can confirm this then. But there was an allocation within Queensland Health's redevelopment of the new hospital to refurbish the second floor of the old hospital, so that it actually fits the modern hospital that's there today. I'm not sure exactly what the refurbishment of the second floor was. My understanding that the second floor was going to be a functioning component of the new hospital. My understanding also was that the old emergency department was going to become more of a general practice type clinic, so that they could separate their emergency customers from those people seeking more of a general practice type service. Because at the moment, everyone just goes into in the previous hospital, everyone just went to emergency. Many of those were, weren't triaged as an emergency; they were just a general practice. So that was my understanding, but we can certainly clarify those things today with Clive Scarrett when he comes. I imagine he'd be able to put some words around that. Look, the other thing I'd say is, I think this is important for council to declare its hand. That yes, we do want to improve the health services that are offered to our community. We get so much leakage to both Cairns and Townsville for many procedures which could be done in this community if we had the right investment and the right facilities. So on the one hand, we're wanting to better serve our community right here, and on the other hand, we want to show potential investors that this is the direction that this council and this region wants to take. We really need to diversify our economy. We've got a very strong agricultural and construction economy at the moment, but the importance of diversifying into health is really, really significant for this community. Not only do we get more services, but we get that robustness of our economic profile that health brings. It brings professional, highly trained people, it brings younger people, and it's the right mix for this community. So we haven't got an investor knocking on our door right at the moment, but this is showing to a potential investor that this council does think health is important, and that's why we're going ahead with this. And as Councillor Cardew said, you don't know exactly the footprint that they may prefer, but a footprint size is something that can easily be changed. And I'll hand over to the planners to talk around some of this too. But the important thing is that we put some cards on the table and show that, you know, this council is keen about this. This is where we'd like to diversify. This is where we'd like to offer more services to our community. I'm wondering if I can go over to you, Sean, if you just talk about the 4,000 metre lot and what that includes and what we're trying to achieve there. Oh, sorry.
Mayor, I thought I had the floor. I was up questions and then I was going to.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Back to you.
And I don't mean to cause difficulties with it, because
okay.
I, like you, am completely committed to the idea of extra health services. My question that I'd like to pose to the councillors is, in the absence of interest now, and the steps we took to lodge a planning application a couple of years ago showed the potential developer, medical business, that we could get on with it and do it. And I really believe in that sort of approach. But I think since that time, everybody should contemplate that things have changed. For example, putting it here, a medical business here, is about as far away from the hospital as you would want it to be, and there were significant parking issues, etc. In the last 2 years, the potential exists for example, the Trenton site. My understandings are that they have to move out of that site for commercial purposes within 2 years. Now that site is a large site which could become, not through our auspices, but could become available at a commercial decision level that we have, over which we have no great influence. My feeling is that there are potentially better sites. And to lock us into this one now is a bit premature. The principle of it is absolutely supported from my point of view and critical for the development, but not that particular site at this time. The other issue is that we're all committed to the Priors Creek precinct. It's going to make significant differences to the shape of Atherton CBD, the traffic flows, the way people see it. One of the immediate thoughts is I could call upon Councillor Wilson's experience here, is that the police station, I've been saying down there, heavens above, where suddenly we're in the middle of this, we need to be in a different site. So we've got part of the integrated community precinct is the government site. We haven't had discussions about that. So in the last 2 years, a lot has emerged, progressively emerged in the way Atherton might be reshaping itself. The other major issue, which we haven't discussed, is if we concentrate more traffic in town, we make traffic worse than it is now. And we know that if we try and drive up and down the main street in the middle of the day, it's really, so we're concentrating from a traffic perspective, concentrating a potential private hospital right in the middle of town, rather than virtual town, it might be better elsewhere. My view is, therefore, that whilst I'm committed to the principle of these things, very much so, but I think it's premature at the moment.
Thanks, Councillor Clifton. Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, thanks, man. Before we go, Sean, I just want to add this to the question list, Sean. In this report, it says we're going to amend the Atherton local plan to allow this site to be virtually as of right for potential investment. That's fine. So that covers the whole of the site. So, and does it cover the whole of the site?
No, through the chair, it relates specifically to the lot that is to be subdivided for the health facility.
Does it cover the whole of the site?
No, just for the local. So the amendment proposes, if I can, maybe I'll just take a couple of steps back and explain the purpose of the variation. So there's two aspects to the application in front of you, councillors. One is the variation to vary the planning scheme. The other is an RAL, so to subdivide that lot off And the changes to the local plan only apply to that newly created lot, so the 4,000 square metre lot. And the purpose of that variation is, as we've discussed today, is to facilitate the development of a healthcare or a hospital facility. So the changes as part of the Atherton local plan code make those uses accepted development, so as of right, and I touch on a point you made, Councillor Cardew, being shovel ready, so the framework sets it up, is ready to go when it's needed. We've taken the initiative, we've identified a site where we that lends itself to this, where this facility could work and operate in proximity, notwithstanding there are other opportunities. Councillor Clifton with the new hospital, the old hospital, I guess, like I said, we've taken the initiative, we've identified a site where this could be facilitated and make changes such that it can be done and is ready to go when it's needed.
We were guided by the market by the contacts in the market as to what their preferred location was, and that was definitely in that location. We're also guided by the Malungu development and the Better Together development, so that we're building a precinct, understanding that the hospital sits where the hospital sits, and not in any way discounting anything that you've said, Councillor Clifton, all very valid points about the changes in the market that have taken place since this project kicked off, but that we were guided by their advice and the desire. I guess the original master plan for here has a medical facility in that location. Malungu's established there now, Better Together's established, so building on that precinct approach. We're going to say we'll make Maple Street like Main Street. That's from a traffic point of view, tongue in cheek, but that was that. And we were also guided by the advice that we got at the time from the proponent that we were talking to, that a significant stumbling block is long planning periods, and we've seen to get this application in front of council. We've made it to ourselves, and it's still been a protracted process, and that was seen by them as an obstacle to establishing in a what could be for them marginal investment if the land is ready to go and the planning processes are can be smooth. That's a plus for a smaller community trying to secure a facility like that.
And I may just add to Gary's point, so we've taken the initiative of this application. So we've had those conversations with TMR, which is generally why this process has probably taken so long. So they don't need to have those conversations down the track. If I can just touch on another point, Councillor Cardew, with regards to the size of the site, yes, that was dictated by the proponent at the time, but I guess the expectation is there if it's not a suitable size in terms of pure floor area, there's the expectation there, and I think it's noted on the plan that it might be a multiple story facility. The amendments to the local plan code provide for up to 4 stories. Although I note that on the plan attached as part of the diagram, it indicates a 1 to 2 story facility. So it multiplies the GFA available to a proponent on that site, and it should be able to accommodate a pretty solid, limited to a number of beds too, in terms of 50 beds facility as well, which at the time was something that was brought to us as being an appropriate site facility.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. And I don't have a problem with that. I mean, if it goes to 4 stories, that's fine. But is it beneficial if we're going to be changing the local area plan or the plan scheme to allow the precinct to be as a or self-accessible? Is it beneficial to include the whole of the site as opposed to just a 4,000 square metre? That would allow some freedom to potential investors to get a little bit closer to the hospital up at the top end of the site as opposed to the bottom end of the site, as per what Councillor Clifton was saying. I don't know, but is it difficult to, if we're going to amend something, amend it for the whole of the site, or are we committed to just a 4,000 square metres?
Look, through the chair, I'd say that part of that site has been specifically identified for this purpose, and we've had conversations with, like I said, TMR and their like for that site and how traffic ingress and egress might work. Look, I'd say you'd have to consider the balance of the site, particularly with regards to the master planning that's been done and what the expectation is and the planning that's been done for the balance of the site, and ensuring that that can still. So I guess, look, specifically we've identified that site. We think we can accommodate a facility of a suitable, appropriate size on that site. We've had the conversations with the people we need to have in order for that to work, and it's been demonstrated it can work on that site, so I think we're relatively committed to that.
Councillor Clifton?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just one question. I just had a vision then. So we've got the local government authority sitting here. We've got potential state government offices across the road. And next door to that, we've got up to a 50-bed hospital. Have you come across in your planning experience a situation like that?
Through the chair.
I do think, though, it's a valid question if we're thinking about in 10 years' time. It's not intended to be a mischievous question. If it goes ahead as we hope it does, if we approve it today, that's what we're going to have. Now, do you know of any other situations like that? And maybe, Mr. CEO, with your much wider local governance experience because of a variety of things, do we know of any circumstances like that?
Through the chair, all I'd probably say in that precinct planning is a concept in the planning world where you would co-locate certain aligned uses. I guess this site is in relatively close proximity to other medical or health facilities, so it does sort of fit in with that. I think, yeah, just putting other government facilities in the same area is probably a good thing in terms of a planning approach. So yes, I'd say the site lends itself to that, and it's not necessarily a bad thing from a planning perspective. Yeah, look, in the future, does this grow into a bit more of that governmental precinct potentially? I'd like to really reiterate, there's a master plan that sort of sits over the balance of the site, which lends itself to a bit more of that open space, but a bit more of a mixture of other community facilities. So it already is going down that path somewhat. Yeah, I think the hospital health is compatible with the other government facilities that are there. It could work well together. So
I could only speak. I can't say I've seen an example. I can't say I haven't either, for that matter. But none spring to mind at the moment. But I know that, and whilst it didn't happen ultimately, the Bundaberg Regional Council was really keen to get their new high-level hospital into the CBD, in close proximity to the CBD, for the benefits that it brings in revitalising a CBD with the work that we're doing in Priors Creek, having that cafe precinct growing and supported by a medical facility would be a plus. People are there visiting or coming there for short stays and things like that. And obviously any additional accommodation that may arise from the Priors Creek development, but also it would be useful for that, for any accommodation establishment to also have that nearby medical facility.
Councillors, any more questions or comments on this one? No? Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. Those in favour of the officer's recommendations? Carried. Thanks. Would you like that recorded, Doug?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, you can record that, Jason. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to item 8.2. TA McFarlane, care of Freshwater Planning, reconfiguring a lot, one lot into 7, lot 5 on RP 725743, 1 to 7 Coral Street, Walkerman, RAL 23/0009. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Wiltz is moving, and Councillor Cardew. Councillor Wiltz.
Yeah, just very briefly, I fully support the development of a few new blocks in Walkerman. It's been a long time since there's been any real development. There's been some large acreage blocks, but as far as blocks in or near the little community centre, I think it's a really positive move, and Walkerman will do very well from it.
Thanks, Councillor Wiltz. Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, thanks, Manny. Can I just ask the planners, are there any, is the applicant happy with the conditions, or is there any conditions in there that they're not happy with?
Through the chair, so I asked the applicants consultants on numerous occasions to provide representations to the draft conditions, and they didn't respond, and we're bound by a statutory decision-making time frame. So the answer to that is they just haven't responded. So they're still entitled to request a negotiated decision notice.
Further to that, I'd just say they're pretty standard conditions you'd apply to a reconfiguration of the lot for this purpose.
Very good. Councillors, any more questions or discussion on this one? Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried.
Can I just ask for a technical procedural motion that this report be received for consideration by the committee? It doesn't strictly fit the committee's charter, so if we just had that procedural motion that the report be received for consideration by the committee.
Yeah, so could we move that procedural motion? So Councillor Clifton's moving it, so we only need a mover, we don't need a seconder. So can we just get the words up there? The report be received by the planning committee.
For consideration.
Received, yeah, received and considered by the planning committee.
Be received and considered.
And I think it's not strictly one of the procedural motions, Mr Mayor, so it probably is worth having it seconded. It's not a listed procedural motion. I'd refer to it as procedural in nature because it's outside. So a seconder would be probably appropriate.
Okay, so all right, thanks Councillor Wilts. So we've got Councillor Clifton is moving it, Councillor Wilts is seconding it. Just finalise those words. The report be received and considered by the planning committee. Is that good?
That's it.
Yep. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Okay. 8.3, Priors Creek Development, Final Detailed Design. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Wilts is moving and a seconder. Councillor Clifton is seconding. Councillor Wilts.
Yes, thanks. I'll just ask for Angelo to give us a bit of a
Yep, thanks, Councillor.
breakdown of where we are.
And through the chair, firstly, I'd just like to point out a change to the civil drawings. This change relates to the wording on the demolition plan, which is sheet 1 of 2. And the purpose of this change is to better describe the modification of the existing structure.
What page are we on?
So this is in the detailed designs, page 5 of the civil drawings, I think it is. The current wording is existing structure to be removed. That has been changed to existing structure to be modified by owner to fit within property boundary. These changes have been made and were distributed to council. Further to that, for my indulgence, just over 12 months ago, Priors Creek obviously was reinvigorated by council, and today we've reached a very significant milestone. This report presents to council for their endorsement the detailed design of Priors Creek for the preparation of the tender documentation. The detailed design will deliver on the vision and will meet the objectives originally sought by the master plan and will be inclusive for our community. The Priors Creek project will be transformational for Atherton and the broader region, not only creating jobs during construction, but also ongoing jobs as well as attracting investment. Given it's such a significant milestone, obviously I'd like to acknowledge the councillors for their vision and attention to detail, and the CEO for his leadership in getting to where it is today. And I'd also like to acknowledge our project team, and in particular our project manager Paul Stubbs. The project team is a very multi-disciplined, experienced team, and the makeup of the project team, whether they be locals, whether they have worked on the previous master plan, has all meant that they've had some skin in the game, so to speak, and this has, for me, resulted in where we are today, delivering on the detailed design. And obviously, as we move from design into construction and start to see activity on the ground, it's very exciting. as we've just spoken about, for the future of the Tablelands, to see this project come to fruition, to see the economic, community and social outcomes the project will deliver. So,
Thanks, Angelo. Could I just add to that too, and thank Angelo for his energy and drive in keeping things moving forward at good speed, and the good work done by Paul. But this project has had input from right across the business, from public art to potentially security cameras with our IT staff. So everyone throughout the business, every section of the business at some point has had to become involved with the project, and I guess it's now a template for us in how to go about delivering projects of significance, Mr. Mayor. So thanks very much, Angelo, for all you've done in the last year to get it here, and pass on my thanks to Paul, who's been a very competent project manager, keeping things on track.
Very good, thank you.
Everybody in the business that's contributed. If I start naming people, I'll miss someone.
Thank you.
Um,
Have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted just a bit of clarity, just for the purpose of the audience, Angela, about the car park entry exit at the RSL into the parking area behind the men's shed.
Yep.
Just some clarity there.
So during discussions with the men's shed and the RSL and the landowner, which is Department of Transport and Main Roads, we obviously created a new entry point from the new link road that will be created. DTMR's preference was for a single shared driveway. We did discuss the concept of an additional driveway, which would have been located side by side. Obviously, we can't guarantee, or DTMR is the landowner, so it'd be up to them to make any modification. But in the spirit of goodwill and cooperation which we've had with DTMR up to this point, that was their preferred outcome, and we've had consultation with both RSL and Men's Shed, and they're both happy with that outcome.
Thanks, Angela.
Thanks very much, councillors. Councillor Wills?
Yeah, just briefly adding on something that the CEO made mention of, that the organisation has been involved in it, and for me, and talking to staff, there seems to be a great degree of ownership in the project at this point in time. So I think that's extremely healthy for the organisation.
Councillor Clifton?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for Angelo. We've got very good expressions of interest in some of the land that's being available for sale and redevelopment. And I'm just wondering whether your opinion of the situation where let's say a developer, I did ask the CEO this earlier, after we've approved this plan, which I completely agree with, what happens if a developer says in his, let's say, lot 4, I want certain things done which step outside the footprint of the freehold block. I want a skyhook or something done to the road. How would we accommodate that kind of thing? Have we?
I guess.
not a skyhook.
Oh, geez, the master plan sets out the vision and objectives for the development, and we haven't really deviated from that. So the detailed designs have been finalised, and obviously as we work through the LI for the freehold lots, one of the outcomes is for built form on the site. So once we work through that process, I think we'll have a better idea of what's proposed for those developments, and we can make an assessment at that point in time whether any of those proposals, and again, that'll go through a selection process, come back to council for final endorsement, what might happen on the site and what that might look like.
Yeah, okay, so you don't see this endorsing this plan, the final design, as being intruding upon the potential of that process?
No, I think it's the opposite. I think kicking off the project, sometimes selling the vision can be quite difficult, and obviously through the process we have generated some interest, and they can share that vision, and obviously the growth that's happening on the Tablelands as well as feeling a lot of that interest. So I think, if anything, I think getting down there and kicking off construction on the site will be the catalyst for potentially other developers looking at Atherton to say that this council is serious about investing in the community and in this important asset.
Thanks very much. Councillor's final call. Yeah, look, I'd just like to reiterate, I'd like to congratulate our Executive Manager, Angelo, and also Paul Stubbs, the Project Manager as well, and their broader team, and also those senior officers in Council, you know, from planning to engineering to cultural and community services. Everyone's been involved, and I'm really grateful for the commitment that's been shown and the way that, you know, it's been driven. That's the way. That's certainly the way to do a transformational project. So I thank everyone and congratulate everyone for contributing the way I have. We've got a mover and a seconder for this one. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation. Harry, thank you. Great.
Thanks.
So that brings us to item 9, business without notice. Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, thanks, man. I just want to, I want to have a discussion about, I know this is a planning committee meeting, I think it's appropriate to this meeting that we discuss this, is the possibility of moving a motion to direct the CEA to investigate the possibility of having left in, left out on Mentee Road. There was a pile up out there only about a couple of weeks ago again, and we really need to address this issue. As a temporary measure, if we can have our officers negotiate with TMR to have left in, left out, as a temporary measure until such time as a developer puts the road through the lock beside John Coles there to get the traffic into the industrial estate. It'll be a temporary measure, and I think, you know, we'll never know, but it'll probably save somebody's life at the end of the day. Yeah, we just got to do something with it. We've been talking about it for a long, long time. There was another pile up there the other day. We just got to do something. So
can I just, through the CEO, is that something that we can reasonably discuss at this meeting?
It's a condition that's attached to some planning applications, my understanding from the manager. It's still the case, or no, it's been removed.
So, through the chair, so there was a condition to a planning approval for, I think the Tri-Props development, to close the intersection with Mentee Road and the Kennedy Highway at the time that Isabella Street East was connected to Mentee Road. DTMR has, through a minor change process, removed that requirement of that development. And I understand now, but I'll have to look at Sean, that there's currently for the Floris Homes development, there's a requirement at some stage to close that intersection off. But that's when I think that's when the lots are surveyed and registered, I think. But I'll refer to Sean for that one.
No, look.
To answer your question, Mr. Mayor, I think the committee can consider the matter given its interrelationship with planning applications in that area.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go to you, Sean.
Through the chair, just to reiterate what Mark has said, there has been requirements placed by the department on the developments in that area with regards to closing Mentee Road. Yes, they removed that requirement on one of the developments, but it remains on the forensic development, and that is, I think, it's prior to the sealing of the first plan off the lot there. So it is. But given TMR's position in relation to another development, we're a bit unsure as to how they might treat any representations made on that condition, and there still is an opportunity for the developer to go back to them about that. Look, and advice provided to Main Roads in relation to it recently, that they're monitoring the situation and will take appropriate steps at the appropriate time. Now, that's just off communications, so nothing in writing with regards to that. Look, I believe it was Councillor Hodge may have wanted to raise this in an ordinary meeting on the back of, so I believe he still intends to do that, whether you want to do it now. So I think he was asking us to write to the Minister requesting the closure. Look, I don't know if there's an opportunity to bring that forward and probably steal Councillor Hodge's thunder there, but yeah,
Councillor Hodge
we'll
does
go
have
to, yeah,
Councillor
CEO
Hodge does have a notice of motion for the next ordinary
Yeah.
council meeting. But as I said, I think it's, the council can consider the matter, whether it wants to consider it without notice is always a matter for the membership, not for me.
Councillor Wilson?
Yes, thanks, through the chair. Yeah, I spoke to Councillor Hodge yesterday about this following a discussion with the Deputy Mayor. I've spoken to the GM regarding this matter also. Spoken to local resident out there who is extremely concerned by the amount of near misses he's experienced recently, and of course the damage that's being done to the grass verge in front of his place from vehicles having to travel completely off the roadway onto a fairly rough verge to get around vehicles that have stopped on Kennedy Highway to turn right into Menthe Road. The information that I was given by the GM was that it is a process, but it's not extensive. If I could ask Mark to just reiterate the brief details of what we discussed yesterday on how this could be facilitated.
Oh, through the chair, by all means. So technically, it's not a difficult thing to achieve with some signage and line marking. We can regulate that intersection to be a left in, left out only. The issue is that we don't have control of the state network, and that would have to be a decision by DTMR. And then they might, if they decide to do that, they might ask council to do that as additional works to the RMPC contract, or they might choose to do that themselves. But in the end, it's a DTMR decision.
Thanks, man.
Councillor Carter?
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move that we instruct the CEO to do whatever necessary to liaise with TMR to have left in, left out on Menthe Road as a temporary measure until the road closure can be facilitated.
Do we want to be that, just thinking aloud, do we want to be that prescriptive in our request for it?
I think so. I think so.
I mean, that only locks us into one option.
Well, as far as I'm aware, it's the only option that, other than close it.
Like, it's already conditioned for closure at some point in the future. I spoke to Councillor Hodge yesterday about his motion that he was intending on moving on the 28th, and he was fairly happy that as long as we had something happen to create a safer situation than what we have now. And I explained to him that Florida's probably going to be some time before that road goes through that estate. So the options to me are very limited, and I think this is one that we should be exploring immediately.
So, thanks. Is there any red flags on this one from you, Mark, or the CEO, on being that prescriptive with that?
And then not from my point of view, it seems like a sensible interim option. From our point of view, it was a condition that was attached to one of the other developments. Maybe it's a residential development behind the industrial areas, I'm not sure. But it's a sensible interim solution, a previously considered interim solution as well, by way of being added as conditions by Main Roads themselves.
Can we just add on the end of that, left in that as a temporary measure until the road closure can be facilitated?
I have a question. in relation, for a long time, Isabella Road, east was closed, and then it was completed and opened up. Now, Manthey Road, in its original form, it was a useful access for limited vehicle usage, and I'm wondering whether we could redirect ourselves to, as well, or to closing off that end of the industrial estate, like it had been closed for years.
Isabella Street,
Isabella Street, yeah.
There was a condition.
it's already open. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay, councillor Kaji's got a proposed motion there. If everyone's had time to read that, do we have a seconder? So councillor Wilkes is seconding that motion that's on the screen.
There will be a couple of local residents that won't be happy with this decision if it ends up. It'll mean they'll have to go down to Bantry Road to facilitate their right turn to get down into their residence.
Okay, councillors, do we have any more discussion on this one? Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Oh, sorry, the councillor's recommendation. Thank you. Would you like that recorded in there?
No,
Councillor
soon
Hope?
we'll have everybody. Can't believe it. It's 4-1.
Okay, that's carried 5-1. Thanks, Jackie. Any more business without notice? Very good. Thanks very much. That being no further business, meeting closed.